The war didn't begin loudly. It began with silence. 3 days after the wedding, Ava sat in the living room of Ethan's penthouse, her phone resting untouched beside her. That alone felt strange. Just a week ago, her phone hadn't stopped buzzing messages, sympathy, pity, gossip. Now nothing. No offers. No scripts. No calls. It was like she had disappeared again. But this time it wasn't humiliation. It was something colder. Deliberate. Ethan walked in, loosening his tie slightly after a long meeting. His eyes moved to her instantly. "You've been staring at that screen for 10 minutes, he said calmly. Ava exhaled slowly. 3 confirmed projects just vanished. Ethan didn't react with surprise. Pulled. "Not officially," she said. "Just suddenly unavailable. No explanation." He stepped closer, picking up her phone and scanning briefly. Production delays. Scheduling conflicts. Budget re-evaluation. He placed the phone back down. "All excuses." Ava leaned back into the couch. "So it's real?" "Yes." She looked at him. "Someone's doing this." Ethan nodded once. "And they're doing it carefully." Ava laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "I just got married and I'm already being erased again." Ethan studied her face, searching for frustration, anger, anything that might push her toward breaking. But she just looked tired. Not weak. Just tired of starting over. "You want me to stop it?" he asked. Ava didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stood and walked toward the window, staring out at the city that had both built her and broken her. "No," she said finally. Ethan's gaze sharpened slightly. "No." She turned to him. "I don't want to hide behind you every time something goes wrong." "That's not hiding," he replied. "It is," she said gently. "At least for me." A pause. "I need to know I can stand on my own." Ethan watched her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right." That was it. No argument. No pressure. Just trust. And somehow that gave her more strength than anything else could. Across the city, Lila Monroe sat at a sleek glass table, reviewing her phone. A slow smile spread across her face. "It's working." Her assistant nodded. "Every studio we contacted backed out quietly." "And Ava?" "No public reaction yet." Lila leaned back satisfied. "Good. That means she's confused." Her eyes darkened slightly. Confused people make mistakes. Back in the penthouse, Ava didn't make a mistake. She made a decision. "If no one will give me a role," she said that night, "I'll create one." Ethan looked up from his laptop. "Explain." "I want to produce my own film," she said. "Small. Real. No big studio. No safety net," he added. "No interference," she agreed. Ethan leaned back slightly. "And if it fails?" Ava met his gaze. "Then at least it's my failure." There was no hesitation in her voice. And that told him everything he needed to know. "All right," he said. Ava blinked. "That's it." "You don't need permission," he replied calmly. "You just need support." Something in her chest tightened unexpectedly. "Thank you," she said quietly. The next 2 weeks were harder than anything Ava had expected. Not because of the work, but because of the resistance. Every step forward came with something pushing back. A location canceled last minute. A key crew member dropping out without explanation. A funding partner suddenly reconsidering. It wasn't random. It was precise. Calculated. Ava stood in an empty warehouse one afternoon, staring at the half set that had been abandoned hours before shooting. Her hands tightened at her sides. "This isn't normal," she said. Ethan, standing beside her, didn't disagree. "No, it's not." She turned to him. "And you're still letting me handle it?" "I said I would step in when you couldn't continue." Ava held his gaze. "I can still continue." A small pause. Then Ethan nodded. "Then keep going." So she did. Smaller team. Tighter budget. Longer hours. And slowly the film began to take shape. Not perfect. Not glamorous. But honest. At the same time, pressure started building around Ethan. Board members questioned him. Investors raised concerns. "Your wife's situation is affecting perception. This instability could impact company value." Ethan listened quietly, then said one thing. My personal life is not a negotiation. Silence filled the room, because everyone there understood something clearly. Ethan Blake didn't repeat himself. The real breaking point came late one evening. Ava arrived at her final shooting location, only to find the gates locked. No notice. No explanation. Just a security guard shaking his head. "Orders from above," he said. Ava stood there in silence as her crew slowly dispersed behind her. For the first time since this started, she felt it. Not anger. Not frustration. But exhaustion. Ethan stepped beside her. "This is where I step in," he said quietly. Ava didn't argue. Didn't resist. She simply nodded. What happened next felt almost unreal. Within hours, Ethan secured a new location. Better. Fully equipped. Protected. No one could interfere. Ava walked through the space the next morning stunned. "You did this overnight?" "Yes." She turned to him. "You could have done this earlier." Ethan met her eyes calmly. "Yes." "Then why didn't you?" "Because you needed to know you could fight first." The answer hit deeper than she expected. This wasn't control. This was balance. And for the first time, she understood how to stand beside him. Not behind him. Not in front. Beside. Filming wrapped 2 weeks later. No more interference. No more sabotage. Because whoever had been pulling strings had realized something. They couldn't break her that easily. The private screening was small. Quiet. No media. No expectations. Ava stood at the back of the room as the film played, her heart beating steadily. She didn't look at the audience. She didn't need to. She already knew what this meant. When the film ended, silence filled the room. Then one person stood and clapped. Then another. And another. Until the entire room was on its feet. Ava's breath caught. Not because she needed approval, but because this was real. That night, she stood on the balcony again. The city lights stretched endlessly below. Ethan joined her, standing close but not intruding. "You did it," he said. Ava shook her head slightly. "I survived it." She looked at him. "And you made sure I didn't fall." Ethan's voice was calm. "That's what partners do." The word lingered between them. Not forced. Not defined. Just understood. Across the city, Lila Monroe stared at the reports. Ava's film was gaining attention. Strong reviews. Industry interest. Her plan had worked. But only halfway. Ava had struggled. But she hadn't fallen. And that was unacceptable. Her expression hardened. "Then I'll just have to try something else." Back at the penthouse, Ava felt something shift inside her. Not sudden. Not dramatic. But steady. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, she didn't feel like she was rebuilding. She felt like she was moving forward. Later that night, as they sat across from each other in quiet comfort, Ava spoke softly. "Why did you really say yes that night?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. Then, "Because you didn't look like someone asking for help." She frowned slightly. "Then what did I look like?" "Someone offering honesty." Ava held his gaze. "And now?" Ethan's voice lowered slightly. "Now I think I made the right decision." Something warm settled between them. Not rushed. Not overwhelming. Just real. And for the first time since this unexpected marriage began, it didn't feel like a deal. It felt like something that was slowly becoming exactly what neither of them had planned, but both of them needed. The shift happened so quietly that Ava didn't notice it at first. Her film wasn't just surviving anymore. It was growing. Within days of the private screening, word spread through the industry. Not through loud promotions or paid headlines, but through something far more powerful. People talking. Directors recommending it. Producers asking about it. Actors requesting auditions for her next project before it even existed. Ava sat at the dining table one morning, scrolling through new messages, her expression unreadable. Ethan walked in, setting his coffee down across from her. "You've checked that 3 times, he said. "I'm making sure it's real," she replied. "It is." She looked up at him. "They're not asking about my past anymore." "No," Ethan said calmly. "They're asking about your future." That difference meant everything. Ava set the phone down slowly. "I didn't think it would happen this way." How did you think it would happen? She thought for a moment. Louder. Bigger. Faster. Ethan shook his head slightly. Things that last usually aren't. She smiled faintly. I'm starting to realize that. But while Ava's world was stabilizing, someone else's was falling apart. Lila Monroe stood in her apartment, staring at her reflection again. But this time there was no confidence in her eyes. Her phone buzzed. Another message. Another rejection. Another project that had suddenly become unavailable. What? She whispered. She dialed a number immediately. You said that deal was confirmed. A pause. Then her expression shifted. What do you mean it's been reassigned? Another pause. To who? Silence. Then, Ava Carter. The call ended. Lila's hand tightened around her phone. For the first time, she understood what had happened. This wasn't luck. This wasn't coincidence. This was reversal. Everything she had quietly taken from Ava was being taken back. And she knew exactly why. Not because Ethan was controlling things, but because he had stopped her from controlling them. The industry had shifted its balance. And Lila was no longer on the stronger side of it. Across the city, Daniel Brooks faced his own reality. He sat alone in a nearly empty restaurant, his agent across from him. No one's calling, Daniel said quietly. They are, the agent replied. Just not for the roles you want. Daniel let out a bitter laugh. So I went from leading roles to being avoided completely. You didn't just make a mistake, the agent said bluntly. You showed people who you are. Daniel looked down at the table. For the first time, he didn't try to defend himself, because there was nothing left to defend. That evening, Ava returned home to find Ethan on the balcony, looking out over the city. She stepped beside him. You were right, she said. I usually am. She rolled her eyes slightly. I mean about letting things settle. He glanced at her. And it worked. A small silence followed. Comfortable. Natural. Then Ava added softly, I didn't need to rush. Ethan nodded. No, you didn't. She leaned slightly against the railing. For the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm chasing something. What do you feel like? Ava thought about it, then smiled. Like I'm choosing. Ethan looked at her for a moment longer than usual. That's better. Days turned into weeks. And somewhere along the way, their marriage changed. Not dramatically, not with a single moment, but through small things. Shared mornings, quiet dinners, conversations that lasted longer than necessary, silences that didn't need to be filled. They stopped being two people trying to make something work, and started becoming two people who simply worked. One night, Ava found Ethan still awake in his office, reviewing documents. You're overworking again, she said, leaning against the doorframe. I always overwork, he replied. She walked in, closing the laptop gently. Not tonight. He looked up at her. And why not? Because you don't need to prove anything anymore. That made him pause. Ava sat across from him. You built everything already. And maintaining it matters. Yes, she agreed. But so does living in it. Ethan studied her face carefully. You're telling me to slow down. I'm telling you to exist in your own life. For a moment, he didn't respond. Then he leaned back slightly. Sit with me, he said. Ava smiled. I was already planning to. They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to. And that was when Ethan realized something unexpected. For the first time in years, his mind was quiet. The final shift came without warning. Ava received a call from one of the biggest directors in the industry. Not an audition. Not a test. An offer. Lead role. Full creative input. She listened carefully, then said something that surprised even herself. I'll consider it. When she ended the call, she turned to Ethan. I didn't say yes immediately. Good. Old me would have. Old you needed validation. Ava smiled slightly. And now? Ethan answered without hesitation. Now you choose what deserves you. She held his gaze. And for a moment, everything between them felt completely clear. Later that night, as they stood on the balcony again, the place where everything seemed to begin and settle, Ava spoke softly. Do you think we would have met if none of this happened? Ethan thought for a moment. No. She nodded. Me neither. A pause. Do you regret that? He looked at her. No. Ava smiled. Good. Another silence. But this one felt different. Full. Complete. Ethan stepped closer. Not out of obligation. Not out of expectation. But because he wanted to. Ava, he said quietly. She looked up at him. This didn't start the way most things do. No, she agreed softly. But I don't want it to stay that way. Her breath slowed slightly. What are you saying? Ethan didn't look away. I'm saying I don't want this to be something we agreed to. A pause. I want this to be something we choose. Ava's expression softened. We already are. He studied her for a second, then asked the one question that mattered. Do you want this? No pressure. No assumptions. Just honesty. Ava stepped closer. Yes, she said. And this time, there was no hesitation. When he kissed her, it wasn't careful anymore. It wasn't uncertain. It was real. Steady. Certain. Everything they had slowly built, finally meeting in one moment. Months later, the world had fully adjusted. Ava Carter wasn't a fallen star anymore. She wasn't a comeback story either. She was simply respected. Her work spoke. Her choices mattered. And her name carried weight again. But this time it wasn't fragile. At another industry event, she walked beside Ethan once more. But now, no one whispered. No one questioned. Because everyone understood something clearly. They weren't standing together for appearance. They were standing together because they belonged there. Together. Daniel saw her from across the room. But he didn't approach. Didn't interrupt. Because now he understood something completely. He hadn't lost her to someone else. He had lost her because he didn't value her when he had the chance. Lila watched from a distance too. But unlike before, she said nothing. Because this time, there was nothing left to take. As the night ended, Ava and Ethan stepped outside into the quiet. The city lights stretched endlessly below. Familiar. Unchanging. And yet everything felt different. Ava looked at him. Do you regret it now? Ethan shook his head. No. She smiled. Me neither. A small pause. Then she added softly. This started in chaos. Yes. And now? Ethan looked at her. Now it's exactly what it should be. Ava nodded. Because she felt it too. No doubt. No uncertainty. No unfinished pieces. What began as an unexpected decision had become something real. Something steady. Something neither of them needed to question anymore. Not a deal. Not an arrangement. Not a reaction to pain. But a choice. Made again and again. Without pressure. Without fear. And this time, there was nothing left to fight. Nothing left to prove. Only something worth keeping. A marriage that didn't just survive everything thrown at it, but grew into something stronger because of it. And in the end, that was more than either of them had ever planned, but exactly what they both needed. Enjoyed the story? Hit like and follow for more stories like this.